Hey there, Pop Culture Network. It's Ryan Porter of the Comics Corner. Yes, that's right. You're listening to the Comics Corner, not reading it. With the changing landscape of the Pop Culture Network, I've decided to give this podcast thing a go. There might even be a crude video, so we can put it up on our YouTube channel to go along with the podcast, but we're putting the written column on hold for a while. Still be doing written reviews for previews and advanced reviews as soon as I get back to doing them. And this is a trial run. We're gonna call this our zero issue, so to speak. No music, no commercials, nothing fancy. Just me rapping about comics for the next couple minutes. And we're going to leave it up to you as to whether or not this stays as a podcast or maybe it goes back to a written column. But I want to try to get into the flow of the new direction of Pop Culture Network. And depending on your feedback, this may become a regular thing and we'll relaunch, to use a comic book term, relaunch the Comics Corner as an audio podcast. So with that out of the way, let's start the way we always do, at the top of the stack. This week's top of the stack belongs to FF number 16. I've got a very special connection with the Fantastic Four because Jonathan Hickman's current run on the Fantastic Four and the sister title FF, which we're highlighting here, started at the same time I started doing comic reviews for Pop Culture Network. And Hickman has basically been telling one massive story the entire time. And it just concluded, and this issue is the first wrap-up issue, if you want to call it that. And this is without a doubt the best post-event issue I've ever read of any story, comic, anything. Better than anything from Blackest Night or Civil War or any of the more recent, not as good events, even though this event was almost entirely self-contained within the pages of Fantastic Four and FF. It really did have that event feel and vibe to it. It was a massive, massive story that obviously Jonathan Hickman had been building for 2.5 years. It was a great wrap-up and relax and kind of showing our characters winding down, so to speak, and also a nice nod to the direction that this series is going to be going next, which we'll get to in a minute. Nick Dragotta provided some very, very Kirby-esque art, almost eerily Kirby at times, and Steve Epting provided a chilling epilogue to this issue, which is one of the most exciting endings I've seen in a long time, along with this being one of the most exciting wrap-up issues I've seen. Basically, Doom gets left in another dimension. He is forced to sacrifice himself to save the world, which is very un-Doom characteristic. But we find out that there's a reason he did it. Obviously, Doom is going to be self-serving, so there's a reason he stayed behind to quote-unquote sacrifice himself. And I won't spoil what it is, but Doom, all I can say is Doom will play very, very heavily into what happens next with the Fantastic Four. When it comes to the Fantastic Four, more Doom is never, ever a bad thing. With the event that just wrapped up, this bridge of an issue that wraps up the previous arc and gets started on the next one already makes me sad that Hickman is soon leaving the Fantastic Four comics. It's announced at the end of the year he's going to be stepping away to do something else for Marvel that he, quote, couldn't turn down. I'm assuming Avengers, but we'll see, since Bendis is stepping down from Avengers, and that isn't bad news. But Hickman leaving Fantastic Four certainly is bad news. And this issue is a pretty good jumping on point. Obviously, you'll be a little confused at what had happened prior, but I would say that it's a perfectly comfortable coming on point, as it's more about starting a new direction than wrapping up where they were before. So if you've been missing out on FF or Fantastic Four, you might want to jump back in now, because Doom is back and things are about to get very, very exciting. All right, now unfortunately we go from the best of the week to the worst of the week. Worst might be a little harsh, but we are now at Spaceman number 5. Brian Azzarello and artist Eduardo Risso have done an amazing job of creating and crafting an elaborate future world setting. This is very, maybe Blade Runner-esque, a little more run down, a little more factory machine oriented than Blade Runner. But in the first 5 issues, they have done a fantastic job of crafting this future world right down to the context and turn a phrase that the characters use and how they speak and what they do in their spare time and how this world operates. After 5 issues, all of that is very, very clear, very immersive, and very impressive. The problem is, in 5 issues, the story has not progressed at all. Our main character is a genetically mutated man-ape thing that this world used basically for guinea pigs in outer space. They needed to be smart enough to get the jobs done in outer space, but not smart enough to rebel, so to speak, or realize they were basically just slave labor. And our main character has accidentally kidnapped a famous couple's daughter, a celebrity couple's daughter. And that happened in the first issue, and 5 issues in, things are just now starting to get going. It's a 9-issue miniseries, so I'm not at this point, I feel like I have to stick with it. because there's only 4 issues left and I've already invested so much time. I feel pot committed at this point, but that's not always a good strategy either. So probably going to give number 6 a try, but if it comes out on a big or expensive week, loaded with lots of other comics that I actually do enjoy, issue number 6 might find itself getting left behind. Proving that sometimes a slow pace and lots of world building pays off, Morning Glories 17 takes a break from the Hunger Games style gym class dominating the previous issues and sets the entire issue in a cave with Jade, our super crazy girl, and Ike, our completely obnoxious asshole. Jade spends the entire issue unloading every thought in her crazy little head to Ike, who repeatedly only makes fun of her and criticizes her every opinion. At one point, Jade even asks, "Why am I bothering to tell you all of this?" Well, it's a fair point, but everything Jade's saying will inevitably become important, and this is comic book. She needs some way to get it all out without internalizing all of it. So that's why Ike is there. Ike is basically there to service the reader, and I think that was kind of a nod that there's a lot of exposition in this issue. It's a little slower than the last couple issues, and it's extremely wordy, but it's actually an oversized issue, and it's still only $2.99. So there's nothing to complain about in that regard. A lot of story, a lot of things that will be important later. Compared this series to Lost on more than one occasion, and I think this, like Lost, will be one of those issues that seemed weird and random at the time, but later on when we go back, I have a feeling that issue 17 is going to be very, very important to the rest of the story. Unlike Fantastic Four, or excuse me, unlike FF, I can honestly say that if you haven't been reading Morning Glories, do not start with number 17. I've read all 16 prior to 17 and was still a little confused. From Morning Glories, we move on to this week's unexpected surprise, IDW's Star Trek number 7. The series so far had only been telling original series story with the new cast from the new movie, but in issue number 7, readers finally get what they want with an all-new story coming right out of the movie's continuity. Kirk and company are investigating mysterious activities in what used to be Vulcan space, with a group of what appear to be Vulcans acting rather suspiciously. Obviously, Spock has a vested interest in discovering why his people appear to be breaking treaty and investigating the area surrounding Vulcan, and Kirk, never one to back away from a conflict, is certainly more than willing to oblige Spock's curiosity. The issue moves along really, really well, and what I like the most about it is that it's very much from the movie. Obviously, something easier said than done, but they really pulled it off. The characters feel like the characters introduced in the film. They talk as you would expect them to. You can really hear the actors coming through the dialogue written. The art is a bit of a drawback. It's perfectly serviceable. It doesn't pop as much as I might like it to, but the artist does do a fine job of walking that line between actor and character. It's not Chris Pine that he's drawing, it's Kirk. Obviously, there are some Chris Pine influences, and it's not Shatner, but it's more Kirk than Chris Pine, which I really, really like. He does pull that off really nicely. I just wish, again, there was a little more excitement to the art than there is. But this is Star Trek, not Star Wars, and a little more subdued might just be what we're looking for. Another very exciting, if completely confusing, cliffhanger. Perhaps not as good as the cliffhanger in FF, this week's top of the stack, but a very interesting, perplexing, really makes you want to read issue number 8 kind of cliffhanger, and that's exactly what cliffhangers are supposed to do. All right, and before we wrap up this week, we've got a couple offerings from DC's New 52, the first of which being Aquaman number 7. They're all number 7s, aren't they? It's the beginning of a new story arc as we start to explore Aquaman's past and discover that he was part of a team before he was quote-unquote enrolled into the Justice League. This team is very Justice League-esque, maybe with a little bit of the Planeteers thrown in there, since they're clearly from all around the world and have very different power sets. They are referred to more than once in this issue as the Others, but Planeteers, or the Planeteer League, is certainly more fun than the Others. The Others just makes me think of Lost, and I got enough Lost this week with Morning Glories. Aquaman has definitely been one of the surprise hits of DC's New 52, and issue number 7 continues that. If you've been hearing about how exciting Aquaman is and have decided to form your own opinion on Aquaman instead of believing what Frank Caliendo or Family Guy has told you, and conditioned you to hate Aquaman without ever reading a comic, do yourself a favor and pick up number 7 and form your own damn opinion for once. Sorry to get up on my soapbox there for a second. We're reintroduced to Black Manta, and the look into Aquaman's past looks like it's going to be very, very exciting. So if you've missed out on Aquaman, basically what I'm trying to say is go out and pick up Aquaman number 7. I don't think you'll be disappointed, and if you are, you come tell me about it. All right, and last but certainly not least this week, also from the New 52, is Flash, also number 7. The Flash has become one of my favorites from DC's New 52. What I like about this is Flash has recently discovered that he can't use his powers to the fullest. Every time he fully taps into the Speed Force, he opens up a wormhole rift in the space-time continuity. That's not right. I got continuity in the brain because of comic books. What he does is he opens up a wormhole rift in the space-time continuum. However, to save his girlfriend in this issue, he does do just that, taps into the full power of the Speed Force, opens up a large rift that brings several innocent civilians into the rift, which had not happened before. He'd been very lucky before that no innocents had been pulled in. This time he wasn't so lucky, and the very girlfriend he was trying to save believes that Barry Allen, who is the Flash, was pulled into the rift as well. So no good deed goes unpunished for the Flash, as the girlfriend he was trying to save thinks that her boyfriend is dead anyway. And the city already hates the Flash because several issues ago he accidentally created an EMP with the Speed Force and knocked all the power out in the city. So the city hates him. His girlfriend hates him because she thinks he killed himself, her boyfriend slash himself. It's very confusing. But it's become very obvious that the reason why I like the Flash so much is because he's now become Spider-Man. No good deed goes unpublished, and he's actually got to deal with the whole secret identity thing, which Spider-Man has always done better than any other hero, and really heroes now don't deal with the secret identity thing at all. When was the last time Batman, or I guess in the New 52, Superman's had to deal with it a little bit, but it's rarely an issue for superheroes, and that's one of the things I like about Spider-Man so much, and it's factoring very heavily and very cleverly into the new Flash series, and that's, I think, a big part of the reason I like it so much. So Flash, of course, purposely created a new wormhole rift and dove into it himself in an attempt to save the people he accidentally put in harm's way previously, and that's where we're left hanging. It's not the most exciting of cliffhangers, but 7 straight issues of awesome Flash comics will certainly produce an 8th, and I'm very, very excited to see where the Flash continues to go from here. Well, there you have it, Pop Culture Network, the Weekend Comics podcast style. Will the Comics Corner return as a written column so you can read all my mixing of past and present tense and occasional misspellings, or would you rather hear me blab on and on and on in an audio version podcast? It's the wave of the future, dude. And to continue the Captain Planet references, the power is yours. Your feedback will determine where the Comics Corner goes from here. Back to a written column, or will it continue as an audio slash sloppy video version to put on the YouTube channel format? It's all up to you. So go make sure you hit up the Pop Culture Network forums or comment should this make it into a crappy video version for YouTube, and let me know what you think. Be sure to hit up PCN Daily, of course, for all our new and exciting content. And I know what you might be thinking to yourself, hey, didn't the new issue of Turtles come out this week? Yes. Yes, it did. So I suppose this is as good a time to tell you as any that Sween and I will be returning very, very soon for the second installment of the Radical Corner of Turtle Comic Talk. That's right, Sween Holic and I will be returning to discuss the second arc and 2 more of the character one-shots in the second upcoming podcast of Radical Corner of Turtle Comics Talk. I'm getting redundant, so it's time to wrap this thing up. Again, hope you guys like it. You need to let me know what you think, written or podcast. We'll talk to you guys or be writing to you guys next week. Bye-bye.